Welcome to the Braeden Anderson Show. Today we have a very, very special guest. We got Brother Ali in the house. He, if you don't know of him, is a hip hop artist known for his socially conscious and positive introspective lyrics. He has released several critically acclaimed albums, including Shadows on the Sun, Undisputed Truth, Morning in America, and Dreaming in Color. In addition to music, Brother Ali is also known for his activism, humanitarian work, including his efforts to promote racial justice and equality. Through his career, Brother Ali has received numerous accolades and awards for his music and activism. Some of those notable accomplishments and awards include Underground Music Award for Best Hip Hop Album for Shadows on the Sun, the Minnesota Music Award for Hip Hop Artist of the Year, the Independent Music Award for Best Hip Hop Rap Album for Morning in America and Dreaming in Color, the BET Hip Hop Award for Best Hip Hop Video, Only Life I Know, the Minnesota Music Award for Hip Hop Artist of the Year, and the Paz and Jop Critics Poll for Album of the Year in 2020 for All the Beauty in This Whole Life. This man is a legend, truly a top three for me in terms of my list of the greatest ever, and just an incredible honor to have you on the show, Brother Ali.
Thanks. Who are your other two? Like, if I'm top three, who are the other two?
I'm so happy that you asked me that. So for me, it's Nas, Jay-Z, Brother Ali. That's how it is for me.
That's amazing. It's always funny when people are like, "You're one of my favorites." I'm like, "Who are your other favorites?" And they're like, "Man, the dude from Informer." It's always like a bunch of white people. It's like the guy from Informer, Vanilla Ice, Bubba Sparks. So you know what I mean?
I hope that you would ask me that, because I think it reveals a lot of like where that compliment comes from, right? Like those top lists. It's if you mess with the cats who are also on the list, or those cats had any inspiration or impact on you as a person or an artist, it's always like, oh man, like, okay, I get where you're coming from there. But for me, it's interesting to even read out some of those, like Underground Hip Hop Artist of the Year, Underground this, Underground that.
Yeah, I never even knew about any of those awards, including the BET one. Like, if I got a BET award, I should have known that. That would have made me really happy.
Yeah,
but I mean, I'm sure it happened, but I just didn't even know. I didn't even know about it.
I mean, when you're grinding and focusing on the craft, sometimes that stuff it falls through the cracks. But it's just interesting, that concept of what is underground, right? And why are certain artists underground? When I think of your music, the impact it had on me and where I grew up, just so you know, I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, Western Canada, end up living all over the U.S. through following that bounce in basketball wherever it went. But you have a massive audience and collective of super fans in Alberta, which is, I'm not sure if you know that, but you growing up, like, it's not a surprise, right? For the people where I grew up, that my list is Nas, Jay-Z, Brother Ali, right? Because you were that big of a deal. And so to you, you're not underground.
Yeah. I think underground is really about, like, have you been embraced by the mainstream platforms? And I've definitely been flirted with by all those platforms. So, like, I was on Jimmy Kimmel with the Roots, and I was on that's not Jimmy Kimmel. I was on who's the guy that hosts the Roots? Is it anyway, I was on that one.
Jimmy Fallon?
Show, like, man,
Fallon?
Jimmy Fallon, yeah. I was on
Yeah.
Fallon with the Roots. I was on Conan O'Brien. I did like a number of those type of thing, Carson Daly and all that stuff. And I was on the Billboard charts a few times with a few of the albums and stuff like that. But I was never really embraced by those mainstream platforms, even though there are artists that were and that have been. So there are people that you see on those types of platforms all the time. But if I do a show in Alberta and they do a show in Alberta, I might get 3 times as many people. And there are other underground artists that are even bigger than me, like Tech Nine and Atmosphere. You know what I mean? They will outsell any of these artists, especially over the course of a career. So, Nas and Jay-Z certainly are doing much better. But for being underground, I really just feel like it means that a person has made it in spite of not being embraced by those platforms. And oftentimes it's because people connect on such a heart level that it actually is the case that artists like me and my friends, so whether we're talking about Killer Mike or Aesop Rock or whoever, that somebody's top 5 list could be a few people that have an enormous platform, and then somebody that might not have a big mainstream kind of outlet, but still be somebody's favorite and still be able to live. In a lot of cases, I feel like I'm more free. I feel like I'm more happy. I feel like I'm less caged in the way that I'm able to live my life. I feel very grateful. I feel like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've always found the concept fascinating that certain artists and the mainstream and like who's making those kinds of decisions, right? Like who's making it. Like I think about your song "Sensitive," right? Um, keep in mind I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit, right? And you talked about the that situation where somebody was interviewing you from one of the major magazines, um, and they were like, "Man, I love you, brother Ali," and whatever, and showing all that love. It was like, where what put me in the magazine. Where's the love in the magazine? Where's it? Why aren't you putting me up with everybody else? And it's it's just kind of an
I
interesting.
notice
Yeah.
they're not gonna, put me on the cover. If they've got whatever, if Kendrick Lamar is on the cover, I'm not going to be on the cover. And I understand that. But my thing is like when they're having conversations about hip hop culture and artistry, and they talk about like, these are the top 10 stories, hip hop storytelling, lyrical, like storytelling songs of all time. Or just times when I'm like, I could be in that conversation. Or times where they say, like, these are some of the best socially conscious hip hop songs of all time. And like no mention of me or Immortal Technique or Atmosphere or Merce or any of the people that I know. Like I know that we've told stories that can rival some of the artists that are on that list.
Absolutely.
And so I just think like I always feel like these people don't care about me. And there may be a little bit of a feeling I have about that where I wish that wasn't true, but it's not how I live. But when I'm in those spaces, I feel like they don't necessarily care about me. So then to go there, and one of the people in the office has a tattoo of one of my lyrics on their arm, and they're
Wow.
writing for the magazine, and it's like, you know who I am. I'm here, and they're doing this one piece because I had a new album out that year. But it's a very strange thing, and I genuinely asked them that question, and they were at least kind enough to sit and talk to me and to try to figure out why. And one of the things they told me is like, we didn't think you wanted to be
Hmm.
talked about. We didn't think you wanted to be mentioned. It's very strange. One time, the congressman from the state of Minnesota, first Muslim congressman in the United States, Keith Ellison's an old, like, dear friend of mine. And then the comedian, talk show host, Hassan Minhaj is also a longtime dear friend of mine.
Oh, he's
They were
awesome.
trying to yeah, during the George Floyd thing, they were trying to have a conversation and they were having a tough time getting in touch with each other. So they both reached out to me. I put them in touch. And Hassan says at the beginning of the interview, like, man, I had to put in the brother Ali call. Like, that's like in the Muslim community, it's like that's a whole other role that I play. And so I called Hassan and I was like, hey, thank you for mentioning me because I've made those connections a lot and people never mention me. And he's like, yo, what's funny is like I almost asked the editors to take that out because I didn't think you'd want to be mentioned. Like, yo,
Interesting.
you didn't think I'd want credit for something I helped do? Like, why not? But I think because of the fact that we haven't been on those platforms, people assume that we don't want to be. And
Hmm.
that's not the case at all. It's just that we're going to do what independent people are going to do what we're here to do, whatever our calling is, whether those platforms are part of it or not. But I think there's a strange thing where people think that we don't want that exposure or something.
Do you think that because your messages and your songs are always, they have this uplifting positivity, and before the show I mentioned that several of your songs were literally anthems for me, right? Like growing up in poverty, dealing with homelessness, trying to make it in a new country by myself, right? Like it was a crazy, crazy journey for me. And I always felt like I could find peace. I could find somebody in your songs and in your music. I felt like you got it. Like I felt like you understood me. The things that you talked about, right? Like I want to mention some of my favorite songs because everybody's got different favorite Brother Ali songs, but I want to mention I came up with 12. I wanted to have a top 10, but I was like, nah, like I have 12, and that it is what it is. So going through it, new joint, had to throw it in there. Own Light, Dorian, Baby Girl, Room with a View, Star Quality, Breaking Dawn, My Beloved, Chain Link, Sensitive, Shadows on the Sun, and Walking Away. Those are my.
That's a good list, man. And there's a couple songs in there. I mean, first of all, anytime somebody's been making music for 20 years and you put one of the new songs in there, automatically the artist is going to want to be your friend. Because most of the time people are like, it doesn't matter how good your new music is. People are like, yeah, but it'll never be like it was when we were all 23. And like, yeah, of course it won't. But that doesn't mean I don't have something to say. You know what I mean?
No, because it's different. You go through different stages in life, right? Like life changes and you're being true to your artistry. And so when you're talking about things, it comes from a genuine place, right? You're talking about what you're thinking about right now.
Yeah. But and I'm saying, yeah, so like I mean Dorian is a great example of that. Like that literally is me living. So I had just come from being homeless. I was living with my first wife in North Minneapolis in the hood. In this, there's like these two buildings next to each other that were halfway houses. So it was either people getting out of jail, getting out of drug rehab, getting out of women's abuse shelters, like people coming from all these different types of walks of life. So it was like transitional housing. It was two six-plex apartment buildings, so 12 units of just people cycling in and out that are in freaking crisis mode. And so this guy was across the hall, used to beat up his girlfriend, and we could hear it. And so one of the times I knocked on the door because I'm like, man, I'm gonna have a conversation with this guy. I'm just gonna talk to him.
Right.
And it escalated, and he, that's exactly what happened in the story. We got in a fight, and I ended up like fighting this guy in my hallway, like in hoop shorts. I'm like in my pajamas. You know what I'm saying? And then the
That's
police
crazy.
came. I don't know who called the police. I don't know if it was like his lady or one of the neighbors, or if they called him because he was beating up her or because I was beating up him or whatever. But when the police came, his lady came out and was like, "Tell him to get off my man." And I'm like, "I'm trying to get him to get off of you." You know what I mean? And so it's like that's such a 22-year-old situation. Like everything about that screams early 20s.
For
You know
real.
what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
Whereas like well, in my 40s, that's just not how I would respond to that thing.
I just love the way that you broke him down as a human being, right? As a weak person, because and you never know, man. You never know how your music's gonna touch somebody else, right? Like for me, I related to that not because I was in an apartment building where I was overhearing somebody beating up their girl, but because my stepdad was abusive towards my mom, right? And like to hear somebody come forward with that like that emotion and that like nah, like you're not cool, you're a small person, right? Like that it's the energy, right? The lyrics are one thing, but the energy that that song produced for me, it made me feel big. Like it made me feel like nah, I'm not gonna let my stepdad do that anymore, right? I'm not gonna I don't care if I can't remember how old I was at the time. We could look up what year was it that Dorian came out.
That came out in '03, and it took a while to spread around. There was no distribution, so you might have heard it in '05 or '06, but it came
Yeah,
out
yeah.
in
So I was young. Like I remember listening to that and being pretty young. I mean, it sounds like I was probably 13, 14 years old, right? And that became like one of those things where it helps you through that emotion, right? And it helps you kind of compartmentalize what's going on and go, no, that's not okay. And it's okay for me to be that person who's gonna say it's not okay. And it's okay for it to not work.
Have the desire. It's like it's okay to have the desire to address this person, to stand up for this other person. Like it's okay to have that desire. I mean, that's the way that I feel so much about music is like, even if I'm not able to find the wherewithal if this song is about a hero, like maybe I'm not able to be that hero, but I at least get some sort of recognition that the inclinations that I'm having I'm not alone in them.
Yeah, you did the right thing, right? Like, so for me, understanding the reverse of it for me as a person listening, I would get in fist fights with my stepdad. He was big. He wasn't a small dude. He was 6'2", 320, right? And I would get in big fist fights with my stepdad over how he would treat me and over how he would treat my mom. And it wasn't a fair fight until I got a little bit older. But at 12, he would knock me out, right? Like that's what caused me being homeless at first. And you could say, hey, maybe you did the wrong thing. You just got knocked out, right? Maybe you should just kind of keep your mouth shut and handle the situation. But sometimes doing the right thing doesn't turn out well right away, right? Sometimes doing the right thing is hard, and sometimes you get knocked out. Sometimes the cops get called and you look like the bad guy, but it's still the right thing to do, because I kept on, trying to make sure that my mom heard that message and knew that I cared, and eventually she did escape that situation.
And the other thing for me is that like I said the F word, like that terrible F word that people say about gay people in that song about that guy. And in my mind, it was like, in my 22-year-old self, I was like, I'm not talking about gay people. I'm saying this
Oh,
dude is
yeah.
weak.
That's not
And it
what that
wasn't
word
until I
meant.
started. No, well, I mean, that's the way that we used it in the
Yeah.
culture that I came from at that time. And we didn't understand that we were like co-signing a narrative
Yeah.
that made it okay to treat gay people a certain way, or to just even think that gay people are weak, because that ultimately is not in and of itself, it's not a weakness.
Right.
But the idea that gay people are weak is like, I had never thought through that. So for me, what that reminds me is that we talking about doing the right thing. It's like, yes, I was raised, and also I've just always been the kind of person that if somebody is being abused, I'm going to say something because I know what it's like to be abused and nobody says anything. I've experienced that even in my adult life, where it's like something is happening wrong and just no one will speak up, or even no one will even say it when they have an opportunity to say it. Just like, okay, so no one's going to say anything.
Yeah, walk us through that. Do you have any recent examples of times where you've kind of channeled that that inner power to try to make a difference?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, I just kind of live like that, I just kind of live like that. Like, I was traveling with some young women, like some young Muslim artist women, and the TSA guys, like, I knew that they only had carry-on bags, like they didn't check bags. So that means all their clothes and private things are in this bag. And so it's a bunch of Muslims coming through the TSA, and the male security guy just starts searching the bag. And so I asked the sister, I was like, "Are your private things in that bag?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Do you want to be in private, and do you want a woman to search your bag?" And she was like, "Yeah." And that's the law. They're supposed to do that. Like I've been harassed by them for 15 years.
Right.
So I said to him, you're not supposed to search that bag. I need you to close the bag. She needs a private room and a woman needs to search her bag." And he was like, "Well, I'm already doing it." And she didn't say anything. I was like, "You were supposed to have asked." So I was
Right.
like, "Step away, close her bag and step away from it now." You know what I mean? And I find myself just like that
Right.
energy again. And I was
Right.
like, "I know you're doing your job." And in my mind, I'm like, "Okay, I'm on 4S status as it is. I
Right.
am this close from being on a no-fly list.
Right.
If I have an incident, I might not be able to travel and practice my craft anymore."
Right.
But in that moment, it's like I have to do, and the way that I spoke to him, like the bass in my voice came out, the daddy voice came out.
Yeah, yeah,
I was
yeah,
like, close the bag, step away, and have do your job the right way.
yeah.
Thank you. You know what I'm saying? And he did it. Like he was scared, and that's
Right.
not a good thing. You already know. You probably know this better than me.
Yeah,
But like
man.
when you scare a person in authority, it's like I wasn't supposed to scare him, but and so one of the sisters was like, "What would you have done like if he just made that call?" And you know, and I'm just like, man, I don't know. Allah is God. I don't know. Like I'm
Right.
like that's just how I am. You know. Um,
Do you feel like it? Do you feel like in those moments it's that it's coming from you, or do you think that in certain moments you're something a higher power speaking through you, right, to do those things, right? Because you it didn't nothing bad did happen, right? You were able to defend somebody who wasn't able to defend themselves in that moment, right? Um, do you feel like do you think it's a spiritual aspect to that?
yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination, and that's the whole point with art, and also, art is a spiritual practice, and all of these things, they're spiritual practices, and the what we try to do in any spiritual practice is allow the best part of ourselves that was designed by the creator to be that without being contaminated by our ego and by our pettiness and by our whatever. Like we try to have, so like there's righteous anger. That was righteous anger, that this guy was in the wrong, he's violating her privacy. She's not doing anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with being Muslim. There's nothing wrong with flying. There's nothing wrong with carrying on your back. There's nothing wrong with anything she's doing. He's not doing his job right. And, he's putting the onus on her and on us. And, so that's righteous anger. And we don't ever want to kill anger, but we want to have anger to the right degree in the exact right. It can become almost like the sword or the weapon or the horse that the person rides. If it's trained, if it's not trained, then it rides you.
I had to work on that for sure. Yeah, yeah, I had to work on that for sure. It's
And it's one of those things that, like with men, when we're in situations where we're trying to like defend ourselves and other people and women from like other men, man, some stuff gets written in there along with the trauma that we're experiencing, and that's in our body, and like, you know, so yeah, it's
yeah, it's
a
the
never ending
passion
process of trying to heal and get right so that we can show up the way we're supposed to.
for sure, for sure. It's the passion, man. It's the it's it's that energy, right? So I want to talk about greatness and the fact that it so often comes from pain and hardship, right, and struggle. Can you tell us about your journey to becoming the legend that you are today and the challenges that you had to overcome to become Brother Ali?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that I think that what you're saying is really true. Is deep. One of my best friends in the world is a poet named Amir Suleiman. Um, he's another one of these people that is just. I think he's one of the wonders of the world. I think he's the greatest poet in the world at our time. Like I don't, there's not a lot of opportunities for someone in his position to really get their flowers, but he was just nominated for a Grammy for the second time.
Wow.
But Amir is writing a movie, and it's an amazing concept for the movie. But what he was saying to me is that this character in this movie, I wanted to write somebody that I love and admire beyond words. Like this person is a composite and culmination of all the people in my life that I love the most. And so he's the most courageous person in the world. He's the most generous person in the world. All these like virtues that he's listing.
Mm.
And he's like, but how do I convey to the audience that comes to watch this movie how amazing this character is? The only way that I can really do it is that I've got to write for him to be courageous, for example. I have to write these situations where he's going to be in danger. Like I have to write really terrifying things in this person's life so that we can witness him be virtuous and be courageous in the moment. So he's like, man, so I'm writing a scary situation. And I realized, like, no, they don't get it. That he's even better than what they're seeing here. He's like, I need to make this more terrifying. So he's like, I go something that makes this even more terrifying. Like I just go back and write something earlier. And so then that way, when this shows up, now you see how amazing he is. And he was like, man, this just really made me think about the creator and the fact that, we experience our lives in these linear forms where like yesterday happened to me yesterday, then today happens to me today, tomorrow will happen tomorrow, Sunday will be Sunday, so on. But the creator sees it all as one story. And so for these for us to be shown who we are, like we need these things that reveal that. And I'm saying like we don't know how generous we are until we have nothing and still find a way to share. So for me it's mostly just it's about it's a lot of identity stuff. So my parents are white. I was born albino in the Midwest in rural Wisconsin. And so it's an overwhelmingly white place. Being albino means I don't have pigment in my skin, hair, eyes. I'm also partially blind. And it's something that is extremely rare for white people. It exists in every race. African
Legally
people
blind,
throughout the
right?
whole diaspora. Yeah, legally blind. Yeah. So like I can't drive, can't do anything that you have to be able to see to do. So um the thing is that like African people have way more albinism than anybody else in the world. And so there's this feeling like a lot of black people just think that albinos are black. And there's a lot of white people that think the same thing. So there have always been people that have treated me like I was, but I've had police officers pull a gun on me. And then I never know what somebody thinks I am until it's like somebody saying it to me or I read it in an interview later. Brother Ali's a black albino and so and so. I'm like, yo, I never said that.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
or like a police officer will be like 6 foot black male, 250 pounds. I'm just like, oh damn it, he thinks I'm black. I'm about to die. Yeah, I feel in my body the difference. Like I know the difference. My mother called the police one time, and so the cop came through the door of my mother. So the cop is like, I'm in white people's house. And he was like, listen, man, we just got to calm the situation down. I know what it's like when the cop thinks I'm white. And then when the cop thinks I'm black, it's guns and what's your real name? And did you convert to Islam in prison? And
Interesting.
all kind of cussing. And I'm, just like, I feel the danger. It's a totally different experience. So most of what I've dealt with in my life is being in America, um, and being kind of like straddled between two worlds of the people that raised me, cared for me, taught me, trained me, loved me, fought me, everything were black. My family was white. A lot of the people that listen to my music are white. The main like speaking up that I do is to my own audience because there are people that like they don't want to, but they like me for racist reasons or for reasons that maybe not be like explicitly racist. Like we're trying to steal black. We want white rappers. We want white people that can do black people stuff as good as them. But there's this thing in America for 400 years where white people really like to see themselves doing something, doing the few things that they historically don't have immediate access to, which is black cultural art forms. So there are certain white people that just love to see a white person rap or play basketball or
Yeah.
you know
The obsession with
have a
Larry
big
Bird.
yeah. Ron Jeremy, I remember they said Ron Jeremy was like, man, you know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, man, that's a white guy with a big
Yeah.
one, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's this. And for me, having been raised and loved and nurtured by inner city black Muslims and pro-black pan-Africanists, and like that's the people that have loved me and nurtured me. So my whole life has just been trying to figure all that out. What does all that mean? Wanting to be accepted, not being fully at home anywhere. That's been the source of most of my stuff.
I can relate a lot to that. So, but before I want to share a little bit uh, with my kind of identity journey. But so, do you identify as black or white, or you're just Brother Ali? But do you identify as a particular race, or do you?
I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah, I basically. So it just kind of depends on what level we're talking about. You know, I don't identify as black because only black people are black. That's just the way that is. Like, I'm sorry, Rachel Dolezal, that just only black people. That is a very unique, specific, like situation in the world that no other group of people, even other people of color, it's like, man, don't steal black stuff and don't just write yourself into black situations because I know everyone has their struggles. I'm sorry, nobody's experienced what Black people have in the New World in the last 500 years. It's very peculiar and unique. Nobody has been stolen and their names changed and their families intentionally broken up for 500 years. It just hasn't happened to anybody else. Maybe in the whole history of the human family. We don't know another time that it's happened like that. So I don't identify as Black, but also it's like I'm not giving, like, I have to be honest about who everything that people like me for. Like, people like to hear me rap. They like my takes on things. They like even my the spiritual stuff that I do, the activism, the organizing, all of that stuff. I was trained directly by Black people. So there's this Black Muslim woman that from my community that listens to my podcast. And sometimes it, like, if I say I'm white on the podcast, she'll hit me up and be like, "That's triggering. Stop saying that." Because it's almost like you're disowning the people that created you. Then the idea of white, though, it's like I inside myself don't have any like connection with that concept on the inside. But I come from a family. I'm saying, like, there are generational traumas and generational experiences. So I come from a family that was positioned in a certain way. You know, so I there's all kind of stuff that I inherit that is from the white experience. So
right,
I kind of look at it, whiteness is a mostly a social thing. It's a communal thing. And so anytime there's like a thing that I think a white person should do, I'm down to do that. When I hear like what are the things that white people should do, whether they come from me or others, it's like, okay, I'm always signed up to do that stuff.
right,
But inside myself, I can't front like I really identify. Like, I love Minister Farrakhan, and when he talks about white people, I don't feel accused of any. I don't
right,
feel
right,
accused. You know what I mean? I feel like he's telling the truth. Like, there's nothing about that that's like off-putting to me. Or if I listen to Malcolm X, or if I listen to, even if I go around a new group of black people and they don't trust me right away, it's like, yeah, that's probably wise. You know what I'm saying? Or if people think like, or even people trying to figure out like, is Brother Ali pretending to be black? That's a good question to ask because there are people that do. Like, everybody wants to steal everything from black people, especially culturally. Like, yes, you should be protective. You know what I mean? I take no offense at any of that.
So yeah, so that's really interesting on the identity front, both personally and also just objectively as a philosophical concept, right? To just break down, because historically, white people have used the one drop rule, right? If you are have one drop, right, and this was a legal thing at one point, right? If you have one drop of black blood in you, you're black, for all legal purposes, and that in many ways still persists today. In general, if you are not white passing, if you're not visibly, obviously white, and you look black, then you're black. If you look white, then you're white, right? And so it was interesting for me because white people all to them, I was a black guy. I was a black kid. I was a black man. I was a black basketball player. I'm a black lawyer now. Whatever I am, you just add black to it, and that's what I'm black dude. Exactly. Exactly. But to black people, it's a little bit different. And you pointed out some of the intricacies there. It's more complicated when it comes to the integration on the black side because there's so much pain there. There's a lot there, right? There's a lot there. There has been so much taking from black culture, so much, hey, I'm black. Hey, I can relate to you. Hey, I'm right there with you. And it's like, no, maybe you're not, right? Like you can't just kind of take that at face value. And there's, I wrote a book called Black Resilience, The Blueprint for Black Triumph in the Face of Racism. And it details my experience growing up in really the middle of nowhere in Canada, surrounded by white people. And then at age 14, just being plucked down into Raleigh and Durham, North Carolina, with all black teammates, with, I'm going to church, I'm going to Christian Faith Center Academy with a 100% black congregation at church on Sunday, and just a totally different world, right? And what I learned in real life and also through research is that black people treat you as black if you can prove that you have a shared experience, that you experience the world the way that they do, right? Because if you grew up privileged, right, even if you're, for me, my mom's white, right? My dad was born in Nigeria. He defected. The only reason why I exist is because he played for the Nigerian national basketball team, and the world championships were in Edmonton, Alberta in '91. And the whole team, because things weren't very good in Nigeria at the time, the whole team defected. And voila. Now, I'm telling you, so that's the only reason why I even exist. But it's this weird, like, shared pain thing. And, like, I've gotten into heated discussions with people, with the black community, where some people, they don't get it. They doubt whether I've been through what they've been through, whether we have that shared pain to unite us. And, I have to say, like, you don't know what it's like. You think it's hard to be in America with your people? Imagine being on the front lines without anybody. You're just the black family in the midst of a sea of white. Nobody comes for you. It's incredible what that's like. I got tied to a tree by skinheads and stoned with rocks, and nobody cared. Didn't make the news. The cops didn't even do anything about it because there's no one to get angry. There's no one there. It's just one black family in the whole town, right? My teachers, when I got in trouble, they'd say, "Get this N-word out of my classroom." No, why? Because they could. They could say that. What was I going to do? Yell? Say F you? Like, what am I going to do? What's my mom going to do? Right? And so it was, for me, the most freeing thing in the world to come to America. When my 2 feet landed on U.S. soil, and I know a lot of people, like, it's hard because I just happen to love America, but it's because of my experience. I went from homelessness, my teachers, they would just write F before they even gave the paper in. They're just like, no, this black kid, just like, it was bad. And people think there's not racism in Canada. But when I got to the U.S., it just was a freeing situation for me. Like, it was...
Like what you said about what we were saying about hearing a song, that like, okay, this song makes me know I'm not alone in this one little corner of my life. But like, times a billion. Like you get to a place and it's like all of your childhood experiences are real. And there's an entire network and culture, and a beautiful culture at that. Like it's the world's favorite culture. Like everybody's favorite expressions of humanity are the very people that nobody is sure whether or not they're fully human. It's like the biggest example of how crazy modern white supremacist reality is.
Just to have numbers, just imagine just having numbers. Like I walked with a different type of confidence. Right, because it didn't matter. Like before, it was, if there's racist people, this could be terrible for me. I could lose my life. I could never get a good grade ever. right? I could like it's very limiting because I have no support at all. Whereas in the US it was like I have some numbers here. Like there's some people out there. People are talking about this. People are defending themselves. People are having these conversations about racism which just are not being had over there.
There's whole departments at schools. There's a whole form of music. There are religions dedicated to this. There's a section at the
Yes.
bookstore. There's like a radio station. There's meetings.
Yes.
There's even just a knowing nod of another person that's just like, hey, you good? You know, yeah, man.
It's just this idea that things can be terrible and you can acknowledge that, for example, racism exists, and you can acknowledge that poverty and homelessness as a child is a bad it's a bad place to start in life, right? Your odds, your statistics, the ratio, right? It's not looking good for you. You can acknowledge that those real variables, right? That could be bad for in terms of being predictors for your future success, but you can also acknowledge that it may not stop you, right? And you can overcome it. And I think that's a tricky dynamic. I'm interested in hearing your view right now because, like, thinking about George Floyd, right, to set the table for you, George Floyd and everything that happened, what motivated me to write the book was I was being forced, and I saw my brothers and sisters in my community being forced to consume trauma porn nonstop. There was just videos, I'm talking Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. There were just videos of black people getting gunned down everywhere. And it hurt me, man. It didn't hurt me in a surprising way, like, man, I didn't know this was happening. It hurt me because it was damaging to our people. Like, it was killing our mojo, it was killing our spirit. It was breaking our courage, right? To see that over and over and over again. Sure, it was raising awareness for white people, but at what cost, right? And like learned helplessness is caused by a person who's been traumatized and has learned that it doesn't matter what they do, they're not going to succeed anyway. And I just like, how do you see that balance between trying to, yeah.
Well, this is one of those things where it's like, do I identify as white or black? So when there's a conversation about and like internal conversations about like within the black community about how should one respond to, think about, conceptualize the reality and the you know, all the complexities and everything of being black. Like what should be one's response? How should they see it? How should they understand it? I don't have a public opinion about any of that, and I don't think that anybody who's not black should. I don't think that it's white people's job to tell black people or to even discuss amongst themselves. This is how black people should see that. This is what's good for black people. This is what's bad for black people. You know what I mean? Now I live in that world and I live in that community, and there's a plethora of opinions that I know all exist about everything under the sun. You know what I'm saying? So like what you were saying, there's a conversation around, should a person whose parents immigrated recently within the last couple of generations from the African continent, should that person be considered the same status as an African American person who's descended from enslaved Africans? I know that's a conversation, and there's people on both sides of it. I know the conversation very well. I know all the points, and privately, I have an opinion because I'm a person who with proximity to all of that stuff.
Right.
But one of the things that's important for me is like, white people should not think that their opinions are even worthy of being heard with regard to what's going on with black people. So my shift is always like, okay, what is important for me, especially because most of the people that listen to me are white.
Yeah, that's
I'm always in a public conversation, I'm always going to be thinking about it that way. And this is what I mean by like if there's a white responsibility, I'm here for the white responsibility. Even if on the inside I don't necessarily identify with it, I also am close enough to it and know the situation well enough to know that a white person's opinion is it just doesn't freaking matter. It's not helpful
It's
to anybody.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting where we are right now, and when you as a black person write a book about black empowerment and black resilience, it's fascinating what that looks like, right? So publishing is ridiculously, insanely white. It's so white, it like I knew it was white, and it still blew my mind how white it was, right? I spoke to hundreds and hundreds of publishers, and I told them, hey, listen, this is unique. I'm writing to a black audience, which is very unique. Most books about racism are written to a white audience, right? Because the idea is that you're preaching to the white people. Yeah, yeah. Hey, buy this book, change yourself. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, the good people. There's good. I mean, they're good people, and there's a market there clearly. And so, but like one issue is, do all of these conversations need to be had with white people? And what does that do again to learn helplessness, right? Because again, think about this fundamentally. If the important person that needs to be spoken to, the person in power, the person who can change things, if that person is always the white person, that's devastating to be black because you're just like, oh, I hope that that conversation over there goes well. I hope that all those woke white people who are reading those books help me after and like change the world and stop racism. I really hope, fingers crossed. I'm not involved in the conversation though. They didn't write the book to me. I'm not in the conversation. Right? So that's one problem that I wanted to solve by writing to a black audience. The other aspect is just have it come from a place of experience. Have it come from somebody who's dealt with racism. Someone who has not all the perspective, but one perspective that hopefully different people can relate to, and then I can go interview people who have other perspectives so that I can build something that's comprehensive. So this idea of a black author writing a book about black empowerment to a black audience was very, very rare. It was almost unheard of. And so the publishers were like, listen, first of all, to your first point, we don't know which way to come out on any of this stuff anyway. We don't know anything. Was kind of the first thing. It was like we just kind of like to stay away from a lot of books about this topic. Some big publishers would say that. Some would say, just totally bluntly, Brother Ali, they would just say, listen, middle-aged white women buy all the books, and and so that's really the demographic that you need to be focused on, and we don't think black people buy a lot of books or read a lot of books because of the statistics, and therefore we don't think that there's a market for this book. And that was the most frustrating comment to hear because you're like, you're perpetuating a system that like devalues black thought and also perpetuating a, if it is true, right? A like if you think that not enough black people read, might it possibly be partly because you're not publishing books that are directed to a black reader that are relevant to black people and communities, right? So it was fascinating kind of getting into that world and realizing how that system works on the fly while trying to spread a message of positivity. And I feel like I can relate to you a lot, Brother Ali, when you talk about like your message and not being able to control whether it's mainstream or not. It's like I have a lot of great views. I say a lot of really artistic and dynamic things. I tell a lot of amazing stories that nobody could rival, but I don't choose whether it's mainstream or not, you know?
It's deep, man. It reminds me so much of just dealing with the music industry. I know all of these amazing Black artists that are, my friends and my community and like the people that I do life with that are incredible, that can do, so much musically. And it's just a really strange space. Like if you look at like, I think Merce is a great example. Open Mike Eagle is another great example. Sa Rock is another great example. It's like a bunch of people that are incredible. And there's basically the mainstream music industry is selling Black art primarily to white teenagers. And so like white teenagers need Black men to either be really dangerous or really very safe. And they basically need Black women to be objects of sexual desire. And that's it. You know what I mean? Then you got the underground, but on the underground, it's like, yeah, but we really prefer this to come from white artists. You know what I'm saying? So you have like these artists that are in this really kind of like middle space. I also think about there's a really dope author, my favorite modern author, um, Kiese Lehman. I had him on my show, the Travelers Podcast, and he was talking about his struggle to, he's written incredible stuff, man. Long Division, How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America. He wrote this book called Heavy. Like, man, he's written some of the most amazing joints. And he had to go with this little under the radar white publisher who jacked him, took all of his money. He had to buy himself out of that contract. And now he's able to re-release his books and he's like working on doing them for TV and stuff. But man, it's
Tough,
yeah,
tough industry.
I've just seen that struggle, man.
It's tough in so many different ways when you're trying to stay true to your artistry and you're trying to stay true to who you are and the message that you're trying to put out there. Like it took me years. Like and I understand that struggle. Like it took me years of just pounding the pavement, just like pitching, having a Black editor at one of the major publishers in the country love the book, love the message, think it was critically important, take it up the chain, and have some white guys in a boardroom say no at the last minute. And it was like one of those things where you're just feeling like, wow, like the world, whoever's in control, whoever's in power, right? Like they didn't want this message. And I think something I've observed, and I want to know your view on this, just generally, is that messages that are not polarizing, messages that truly do make a difference. Like the message of my book, I'm not about attacking white people. I'm just about real solutions. I'm just really about like, listen, racism sucks. I hope it changes. I hope the world changes. But I'm not going to bet my life on it, and neither should you. So let's have a huddle right now and figure out what we're going to do to succeed. And I thought about what if I was a truly racist person, if I was the most racist person in the world, what would I hate more than anything? What would be my worst absolute nightmare in the world? And it would be Black people feeling empowered. Black people feeling like racism's not going to stop me. Come at me. You're going to have to kill me. Right? Because some people will say that. It's like racism can't stop me.
The perfect antithesis is Black people coming together, being empowered. And I will say that that's the one thing I will say publicly is that the community that really embraced me and also taught me and trained me came from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Marcus Garvey and like Black empowerment. You know what I mean? So I'm inclined to believing in that. Like that speaks to me. But the thing, the civil rights movement also speaks to me, all of it. Like I'm here for all of it.
It's just interesting that the mainstream would prefer, like, you want to find, like, as a betting man, if I'm trying to find someone who's going to be the next big thing that everybody's going to put on, it's going to be the most vile, violent, ridiculous lyrics you've ever seen coming from somebody who, like, listen, hip hop, and I like some of that stuff. Like there's different brands of hip hop, right? And and people are just telling their story. And so I'm not gonna hate on somebody. That's somebody's story, right? It may not be critical core values that I want my sons and daughters to grow up kind of embodying, right, and trying to imitate, right? But some of these rappers coming up, like, why are we can't as a society dictate what artists are going to create, right? But I just find it interesting that the mainstream always happens to choose the most violent, most vile, the furthest from, in my opinion, the version of blackness and society that is going to take our community to the next level. That stuff gets labeled white. Oh, you care about school? You know how many black people told me that's white? I got good grades, and I would get teased by people saying, "Oh, that's white. That's white. You doing well in school is white." And like, it took me a long time to have the confidence to be like, "That's bullshit. That's bullshit that you're saying that. It's not white. Anybody can get good grades."
Yeah. And this is all dictated by a white power structure, and it's really important, man. It's like I've always believed it's really very, very deeply important to study the history of white supremacy in all aspects, to study like what has happened under white domination in education in all forms. So if one of the movies that I just love is Bamboozled, Spike Lee's movie Bamboozled, where he really does a great job of showing these different different expressions of blackness and how the white controlled media has always related to that stuff. And it's important to know that history, and then know like who do I where do I see a correlation between the way I'm showing up and what's happened in the past and what happened to the people in the past. You know what I mean? So I look at that all the time. Like I try to take my cues from people like Paul Robeson, um, and I mean those are people that were outcasted, and people that were, in a lot of ways smitten and really like bore the brunt of what they said and the decisions that they made and things like that. But yeah, man, I mean historically, like Hollywood and all of the major platforms, they've all been dominated by white people and by, and right now, it's interesting that, a lot of times when we talk about white people, people think about them individually. And I'm not talking about individuals, but I'm talking about the way that groups of people enact systems of power on each other. Like just politics is a reality. And so groups of people enact power, and you wield that power in certain ways. And every group has its own realities, and every group deserves its own critique, especially when they're in power. And white people haven't always existed. That category just existed for the last 500 years. And ever since that point, it's important to look at how it's operated. And yeah, man, they definitely have always chosen. You can look at somebody like Candace Owens and see how that how that her not even her as a personality or as a person, but the way that specific type of person has been used by the white media since the very beginning. You know what I mean? And there's yeah, I mean, if you were to have written a book that like black people need to do this and black people are messing up, and you know what I mean, I'm going to teach you. Like if you had taken that perspective in your book, like just made that little switch, you know what I mean, to be like the right wing leaning, uh, conservative thing, you probably would have found people to distribute your book. They probably would have put a bunch of money behind you. You know what I mean? Because it serves that end.
Yeah, it's you gotta you gotta stay true to who you are, right? I was offered a lot of money to write a legal thriller, right? Because as an attorney at a big law firm, that's the natural. They do want black authors because they do, from a diversity perspective, want to put on black authors. But they really don't want you to talk about race, right? They really don't want you to go there. And even if you were to come up with a very divisive message, it would likely sell better in their mind, and so it may look more lucrative, but it's still a risk because it's so finicky. I just think that the Uncle Tom sort of narrative, it's no one loves it more and puts more money behind sharing that narrative than very, very racist white people, right? This whole divisive, like anything that will pit people against themselves and say, oh, like no, it's white to do that, it's white to do that. You can't leave the hood, you can't move to the suburbs, you can't get an education, you can't become a lawyer, you can't, right? Like all these different limits. It's like really the only thing I can do to be successful that is going to be accepted is sports or hip hop, like or jazz. Like why can't it doesn't need to have been historically black for it to be something that the black community can do. We can do anything. Newsflash, we can do literally anything. We're doing it. We're in boardrooms.
I mean, what history proves is if you just make it fair, Black people will excel in all areas.
Yes.
And
Yes.
this is me saying this. I'm not speaking for anybody else, not speaking for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Black people are the original archetypes of humanity. Everything everything that grows out of a tree was present in the seed. Everything that human beings have done is there in the first human beings. The archetype, prototype, the seed from which all of the human family grows is there in the original people. That matters to me. And I think that the main reason, from my observation, is like white people need Black people so badly. Like, cannot figure out how to pray, dance, have cut off all the streams to things that white people have figured out how to do. Black people aren't allowed to do those things. Anything that white people can figure out how to do, cut those things off. You can't do those. We're going to do those completely by ourselves as much as possible. And, but then the things that we don't want to get our hands dirty doing, like crime, we'll let you do that part because we need the illegal stuff. We need the drugs. We need the sex workers. We need the stolen goods. We want access to the stuff, but we're not going to do it. So we'll let you do that part, and then
yeah, right.
Yeah, and then the things that white people cannot objectively do. If you put somebody on a basketball court or on the microphone, it's just going to be objectively there that like nobody's going to deny who's superior in that moment. Give them both a saxophone and like let whoever play next to John Coltrane. I'm sorry, it's not even the same conversation.
Right.
So like all of those avenues just being cut off. So it's like white people need Black people so bad, and at the same time hate to be compared.
It's interesting. I think it's interesting to think about where it comes from, right? It comes from this idea that at the very beginning, it's, well, what are we going to allow? Black people have their freedom now. They're no, like, what are we going to allow Black people to do? Where is going to be their place, right? And there's this kind of pigeonholing, right, that has begun to happen. Like, yeah, Black people are often great athletes. They're often great musicians, but there's hedge fund managers and traders on Wall Street and doctors.
That idea had to be developed. I'm saying the first generation after slavery did everything. There were entire business districts that white people could not compete with. You know what I'm saying? Like there was every type of infrastructure was being developed by the Black community immediately because white people didn't think they had to limit. Like after all these years of feeling like a slave master, they didn't think they had to limit people. So it was just like, whatever, yeah, let them go. They're going to starve to death and come back begging to be sharecroppers. And then immediately the first generation was like, schools, funeral parlors, stores, import, export, every type of business, Black Wall Street. And like suddenly within a generation, like white people couldn't compete with that. And so it was like, no, we've got to figure out what your place is. And so that like started happening. And what's so crazy what you're saying is like, and I've seen it happen. So like, man, I've seen it happen where this idea, what you're saying about like the authors that like, we want Black authors, we just don't want them to talk about being Black. Like that's slavery. We're like, we want your Black body to be here. Like we need you to say like, look, we've got Blacks,
Yeah.
but you can't show up as your full Black self because that's, you know what I
You
mean?
do it our way.
So
You
like
gotta do
right,
it.
so like right from your soul in a way that's engaging to people, but not that part of your soul.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, man, how's that not ownership?
And we don't want you to talk to these people. We want you to talk to white people, right? Just that whole dynamic is it's it's something that I think the only way to change it. I've done a lot of thinking about it. My view, and I'm curious your view, but my view is we need to shine the spotlight on different kinds of Black success than we have historically. We don't think about it. We don't put the shine on to Black lawyers. We're not putting them up there with the spotlight. We're not giving them the mic. We're not writing articles about it. We're not making movies saying, hey, how the hell did you do this? How did you grow up in the projects and become a billionaire? How did you do this stuff? We're not making that part of the narrative. We're telling a lot of stories, but we're not telling the modern Black success story because there's tons of them. And what happens is you grow up not knowing that there's so many people in the Black community that are transcending racism. They are overcoming poverty. They are getting into those almost all white boardrooms at Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, and they all have incredible stories. If you talk to any one of these Black men and women, they have crazy stories of like, man, it was crazy. Let me tell you how I did it. It was ridiculous. Take notes, right? And like, that's what this book was about. And I started a foundation as well called the Black Resilience Foundation. And the whole goal of the foundation is to find people like that and give them a mic and put the camera in their face and say like, please tell your story so we can share it with as many people as possible so that others who are struggling, who are in ridiculous situations, who feel like there's no way I can be successful, there's no blueprint here for me, can understand and have some sort of empathy from seeing somebody else go through something that might be similar and get to a place where it might be somewhere that you might want to go. Because for me, I initially wanted to become a doctor. Didn't become a doctor, but it doesn't matter. I believed that I could become a doctor, and so I became whatever I wanted. And I just want to free, any community that's been marginalized, right? Free them from this limiting mentality that you're going to be stopped from getting there somehow.
There are certain like networks within the Black community, which is, it's interesting because like my personal experience is like, how sometimes if say your mom and grandmother, like they're nice ladies, they're nice people, they're not mean, they're nice people. But when company comes over, like if another kid comes over, they're extra nice, and like they're nice in ways that you're just like, who is this lady? Who are these people? Like they're extra nice. Like if someone's at your house, or like, you know, um, I feel like that's been my experience in the Black community. Like I feel like I'm getting the best of so many of the people that I'm with. But there are networks, for example, like that's the role that a lot of historically Black colleges have played. You know what I'm saying? Is that like you talk to people that have gone to Morehouse, like there's an entire network. I was talking to Young Guru, Jay-Z's engineer and DJ on my podcast. And, he went to Howard, and like the people that went to Howard University, there's like a very, very real
Oh yeah.
network, and people keep up with each other and they know like multiple generations. You know what I'm saying? Like who went to and then there's Morehouse, which is another one. You know what I'm saying? That's where Spike Lee went. And so this person know that's where I want to say Chadwick went. And like, you know what I'm saying? You start learning that there's these entire networks of people. But those networks they can be challenging to access. That's the feeling that I get anyway.
Definitely challenging. I'm definitely trying to get in with some of those folks. I mean, it's tough. I wish I went to Howard. I actually, there's a ton of big time attorneys at my firm who we got a really solid collective of folks who went to HBCUs and Howard in particular. The numbers are big. Like I mentioned at the very beginning of the podcast, having the numbers, feeling like I got support, like we're doing this together, we have each other's back, is incredible. It's a big piece of it. But the other piece of it is the crossing the aisle. It is I call it building a bridge. The only thing that I've seen that is disadvantageous to the bigger picture of Black success, the networking and the click, it's great. It's incredible to have the strong Black networks. I think it's necessary. What sometimes happens is they can become so insular that nobody is making connections outside of it, right? And you'll have groups at companies, at law firms, in music, that they don't want to branch out. And so, like, for example, if you meet somebody who is white and doesn't really seem like they're seeing it your way, or they're treating you in a way, we all know how it feels, right? In the Black community, you know how it feels. They're treating you in a way that it just smells like racism. They're not treating you properly, and there's no reason why, and it's frustrating.
It's not an embrace.
It's not.
I'm not being embraced here. Yeah.
Like, I remember, like, one perfect example, it's little stuff. I was at an internship, I won't say where, and, I'm there. It's a pretty elite internship. I'm the only black intern for sure, of course. And, I'm there with two peers, went to similar level schools, whatever. And we're doing the introductions around the office, right? You go shake different people's hands. Hey, nice to meet you. Oh, welcome to the office, and blah, blah, blah. And you just do the little chit chat. And most people were really nice, because most people, I think, are pretty good and not racist. But there was this one guy who was really important. He happened to be like the person who I had circled on the list, really needed, because he was a supervisor level dude, right? And so he was important for me to get some FaceTime with. And I went last. He shook the different people's hands, and for each person before me, he was really engaged with them. He shook their hand. He asked them about them. There was a little, back and forth that happened, and it got to me, and I kid you not, Ali, he didn't even look at me. He did a little, oh yeah, nice to meet you. He didn't even look at me. And it was this like, oh, and I was waiting. I was last, right? And so I was like excited to have a conversation with this guy. And like, I was like, oh man, okay. And like, because I had been through similar things like that in the past, my next move was like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm not quitting. I'm not going to start avoiding this guy. I'm not going to write this guy off. I'm not just going to quit. This person is confused. This person is confused about who I am and my identity. This person thinks that I'm not a high value person. At least I'm not high value enough to be worth a couple moments of his time to look me in the eye, to shake my hand, and to have a couple minutes of a conversation. And so how can I help this person through that? Because yes, it is their problem. And it's really easy to just kind of write that person off and say, not my person. I'll go make it through somewhere else. I'll go make it through a different person. I'll make a different connection. I'll make it in spite of this person. Building that bridge, if you're able to break that down and help that person learn who Brother Ali is, who Braeden Anderson is, it really is transformative in terms of what it can do to your path and your journey to success. And I've seen it happen so many times with him and with so many other people after that you can chip away at people. And it's hard to swallow your pride, and a lot of people in the Black community will respond to that and say, listen, I shouldn't have to do that, and I'm not gonna do that. And like, I get that completely. I think it just comes down to this, the premise at the very beginning is are you willing to bet your life on it, right? Like, there's a lot of things that happen that we're forced to do that we shouldn't be forced to do, but it's not about the other person. It's about you. It's about your success. It's about generational success for your kids and their kids, and changing the game so that your great grandkids never would dream of having to do that, and your kids hopefully wouldn't have to do that. But you know, and that may be one of those areas where you're like, listen, you know, can't speak from the Black perspective, but
Well, yeah, no, I mean, what I hear when I hear that is the deep violence of not only that experience, but then also that for so many people is connected to generation after generation of that same person that you're sitting there with. In this case, it's like, I want a job. Maybe a generation before that, it was like, this person is here to rape the women in this house. You know what I mean? Or this person is the one that's going to decide whether or not somebody gets lynched, or decides whether or not somebody's children get to eat or get to stay in their family. Or like, so for so many people, there's this literal something that's happened on a body level, on a nervous system level, on a something that's happening in the body that is very real. So my part of that conversation, as somebody that descends from European American people, from white people, and then also those are the people that listen to me, is like, yes, okay, the rest of the white people in that room are nice, like you said, and I believe they're nice, and I believe that people's default setting is nice. But what is it that makes no other white person see that happened?
right.
You know what I'm saying? That this raggedy mother, like, literally shook every other person's hand and then gave you the fish hand and the not real eye contact, and nobody saw that. Nobody in their mind were like, hey, how come he just did that kid like that? All these other young people, they all got a real handshake. They all got a real, how come, you know what I mean?
I never
Why
thought
is it
about
that in a room full of nice ass white people? Because I'm saying that's so when I'm like, okay, what's the white responsibility? That's the way that I'm thinking. And at what point do white people start creating culture together around, if we really are like, not only am I not actively involved in racism, but if a person is not noticing that, then you're not a person. And if you notice something like that and you don't say anything, or they'll sneak off to the side and have a private moment with you. Hey man, just want to say that was messed up. No, go tell him. Like, go talk to the other white people about, you know what I'm saying? Because there's a cultural like freezing that happens with white people, where like white people have not developed like cultural, communal, embodied tools to how's that going to happen. And
right.
so I've been many times have been the white person that says something and then gets castigated. And then, you know what I'm saying? And that's cool that I get to feel tough by doing that. But that has changed zero structure just from me being cool. It's a lot like, okay, I'm going to go get in a fight with the guy that's beating up his girlfriend, and then the police arrest me. It doesn't actually help. That's
Right.
my learning. That's my takeaway from that. That didn't actually help anybody. It might have made me feel like a big bad truth teller, but like, where's the part where white people decide that like we're not going to allow racism anymore? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when somebody
Yeah.
does something like that, we're going to spend, because it took 500 years for European crop shit, like people that were just working the land to turn into people that thought they were white and entitled to all this stuff. That took hundreds of years. That's not a human thing. So it might take generations for like white people, but like, where's that part? And
Right.
so for me, that's automatically where I go.
Yeah, and I think that is a really important aspect of being an ally. I think that's truly the most important, personally, aspect of being an ally, because that's the one thing that I can tell you as a Black person we can't do, and it doesn't work to do. And certain people do try, right? But like this whole idea that you can call out white people for their racism, you can, right? As a Black person, you can do that. it's not gonna work well for you, right? It's not gonna, because your goal is not to offend that person or put that person in a defensive posture, do anything like that. And a lot of times it is unconscious. Like this guy, I swear to you, Ali, I don't think he even noticed it. Like I think he truly didn't value my presence to his core. Like he truly, generationally, whatever, like he saw me and didn't see somebody worth talking to and shaking their hand. And just subconsciously, like, didn't do it. And like, if I were to say, hey, why didn't you shake my hand? Are you racist? Or like, whatever. He'd just be like, oh my God, like, now I'm going to avoid this guy forever. This guy's terrifying. He yelled at me.
You might get pulled out of there. You might get, you know what I'm saying? You might get charged with something. You might get harmed for doing that.
But if you had an ally like that can, probably in private would be nicer, but
Even deeper than like the ally thing, it's like, man, white people who do stuff like that or think about that stuff as like, I'm doing this so that I'm doing this for Braeden. Like, well, man, then you're never gonna get anywhere.
right.
The idea has to be like, I want to be a full human being.
I don't like that. Yeah, that's not what we do. And the we, yeah,
Like, I can't be a full human being in a world where other people are killed for my comfort. Like where other people are killed so that I never have to look at myself. Like something in my soul is going to be deeply destroyed by that happening. Like I'm saying, for that guy to get to a place where he doesn't even notice that he didn't shake, you know what I'm saying, your hand. And like you're clearly you're a big physical presence, you're charismatic, you're obviously you know what I'm saying? Like for somebody to not, like, who wouldn't want to shake your hand just because you're you? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, well, who want to shake your raggedy ass old rich, you know what I'm saying, wrinkled up hand anyway? Like, who want to shake your damn hand anyway? Try to
right.
come here trying to breathe life into your company and give all these new, you know what I mean? Bring in all of these like resources. But I'm saying like
Yeah,
that's hundreds of years of like hundreds of years of like men and women had to die for and hundreds of his ancestors had to sit and watch that and not say anything. Like they attended lynchings. They sat there and watched it, and the human heart and soul is like, this is wrong. But hundreds of years, nobody's saying anything. They take pictures with the body. I'm sorry for saying, but like horrible things. I
yeah,
don't, you know.
right.
So like that took a long time for a person to get to the point where they don't even notice that they're not shaking your hand.
Bias is one of those things that creeps up, right? Like I think identity is a really important aspect to everything, right? In life, because we assign different values and characteristics to people, and we kind of build the identity of who they are, right? Like Brother Ali, he's a legendary rapper. He's a legend in the game. He's a veteran in the game. Right? Like it's the narrative around who you are and what you know about that person. If someone just meets you, right, it's, oh, okay, he's this albino guy. I don't know who he is.
When I'm in Istanbul, I'm just a fat American that doesn't know Turkish. I'm
Right?
an idiot.
And that's how you get treated.
I am just an idiot. Yeah.
And like when I first step foot into new jobs, new companies, new roles, I'm just a tall black guy with a huge, with covered in tattoos, right? And like I don't know, maybe he played sports, maybe he's a criminal, but he's a black guy. That's all they know. And you have to. What's unfortunate is there's that work in the back end because there's no assumptions that are favorable for you. When privilege, people want to know what's privilege. Privilege is when all the assumptions, all the gaps of knowledge where they don't know who you are, they're guessing. It's when all those assumptions are good. And when they're not good, right, it hurts. And you have to do the work, right? Like with new people that I would meet in the office, it would be like, I'd have to try to add, and it's not all like work related. It would be like, I'd see a Steelers poster on the wall and I'd be like, okay, I can talk to you about football. And after the Steelers game, oh, tough game, blah blah blah. You think you guys will ever get a good quarterback, right? Give him a hard time. Try to okay, Braeden. I know that he's tall, he's black, he likes football. And then right the next time I might see, oh, there's a picture of his daughter, in the photo frame there when I walk by his office. Like, hey, I have a daughter too. I noticed the picture. Like, my girl's 4. She's turning 5 soon. Blah blah blah. And try to just and then next time they're like, okay, Braeden, he has a daughter. He likes football, whatever. And you just kind of start building and building to try to fill those gaps. But what is unfortunate is that, like, we all have to fill those gaps to build relationships with people. But what's unfortunate is that before I fill them, they're filled with negative stuff.
Yeah, you got to be like, hey, I'm human. Guess what? I'm actually human. Believe it or not, I'm human. I'm actually a whole human. I'm actually not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not just yeah, man. And I mean, so much of it is, man, everybody needs Black people, and especially white people don't like being compared. Because it's like, what does it mean if, like, well, what if you're taller than me, you're faster than me, and you're smarter than me? Then who the hell am I? And it's like, man, that's something that's part of the work that, like, white people need to do together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I remember Toni Morrison one time was in an interview, and she was like, what would happen if you didn't what would happen if you didn't hold other people back? Like, would you still feel good about yourself? Would you still,
I think that's what, yeah. I mean, certain people.
And all that stuff you're describing is like, that's why that dude, and like, it's not even about that individual or you as an individual. It's about, like, this is just what life is. This is a historical fact that this is what life is. You know what I'm saying? So, like, all of the internal, like, labor that you have to do to prove to this person, to, like, prove something that's unprovable and is self-evident already, and it's only based on his sickness that he doesn't know you're a human being. That you gotta feel, you gotta be a psychologist that like rectifies his insanity, that thinks that you're not human. You know what I'm saying? And then this dude gets to live 10 years longer on average because he didn't have to go through life doing all that just to show up to be good at a punk ass job.
Right.
Just for the chance to be dope at a job. To me, I'm like, okay, this is why me and my man Brendan, BK1, he was my DJ when I first started rapping. And I bonded with him over being, like, a deeply committed anti-racist white person. Like, the person I know that, like, no question about him, he identifies as white. Everything in his life has been white. The first white person that I met that was deeply committed to being anti-racist, to the point where he's down to make mistakes. He's down to be wrong. He's down to, like, be in danger. He'll sacrifice stuff. He'll, you know what I'm saying? One of the most committed people that I've known. And so for me and him, like, so much of what we do is, like, this is a good reminder for me, and I appreciate it. It's like, man, we have very, very serious work to do for the people who understand themselves to be white and want to be a force of good. It's like, man, being nice isn't gonna do it.
I appreciate you guys a lot, and not just the sentiments, but all of the courage and the value that you guys bring to the table, that your artistry has brought to the table. I want to, before we wrap up, talk about what you're working on right now, and what's next for Brother Ali. Just kind of a snapshot in time of. I know you got the Travelers podcast going, and I've caught a few of those episodes. Those were really interesting. But what else are you working on, and what's next?
So I have a couple musical projects. My main thing was to move out of America, and get my family out of America for the time being, anyway, and to really become as free and independent as possible. So I was with a really amazing underground record label for 20 years, and now I'm operating, just me and Brendan and a few other partners, just being fully, completely independent. So we're just not like, learning to release music and do these podcasts and, so it's a number of things. Like I do a series of self-produced 1 minute freestyles that I release just periodically on social media. And then I make collections of them every now and then called Brother Minister. I have new music that like you mentioned, going through it. I appreciate that a lot. Cause yeah, we've put out.
That instrumental is insane. Insane.
Thank you, man. Me and Ant did that one together. So like Ant that produced my records and Atmosphere Records.
Oh, wow.
That was the first time he had to co-produce something.
Incredible.
So he had the music, but he didn't like the drums that he did. So I went in and redid the drums, and he was like, "Oh, now I like it." And so that was the first time he ever co-produced something.
It's just epic. You got it right. Like, and there's a lot of Ant produced beats that you get that feeling from, where you're like, ooh, you got like the goosebumps, right? You're like, oh man, this is something. This is tapping into something.
He's a special dude, man. He's a special dude. Yeah, and it's interesting because Atmosphere and Slug, their fathers are Black and Native and white, and their mothers are white. So by the one drop rule, they would be considered Black. Like they grew up in Black neighborhoods and Black families. Ant's name is Anthony Jerome Davis.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
and I didn't mention that Atmosphere is obviously in my top 5 as well.
We only got to 3. But I mean, yeah.
But those guys are considered white. Just because most white people look at them and they're like, oh, they're white. You know what I mean? It's one of those like really strange things. And so they've always tried to carry themselves the way that they think white people should in the art form. Interesting. But yeah, so podcasting, making music. I have a couple. Yeah, so we set up, so my catalog that I did with Rhymesayers is still at Rhymesayers. It's all love. It's all a great, beautiful relationship still. This is just more so about me spreading my wings and, moving out of my parents' house type of thing.
No doubt.
And so, yeah, so me and Brendan together set up Travelers Media, which is the podcast, the music. We do learning series. So like I do like online workshops for how to build a touring career, how to write hip hop songs.
I saw that.
Different learning series. So basically all the different stuff that we do, we did set up a company so that we could do all of the things that we're producing.
Do you think that through those writing workshops, because I saw that's really, really cool that you're doing that. What an opportunity. I mean, for so many, I'm sure you're noticing like that you have this massive collection of people who are both fans and also artists themselves and are inspired by you, and like that opportunity to attend a workshop that you put together, I'm sure is just amazing. Do you see any opportunities through that to end up adding artists to your label and kind of helping them? Because that's sometimes how it starts, right? People are inspired by you that are also massively talented, and they share some stuff with you, and you're like, dang, this is pretty good. Let me see if I can help get this out there. Like, do you see any potential opportunities for that?
So I've always helped other artists when I can. And like as an artist, the only thing that you can really do is just share people with your fan base. So like, I bring people on tour and I have them open up at the shows. And so like you get 45 minutes of my audience's undivided attention, and I'll let them know that I brought you here, because I love you. That's really the most you can do.
Huge.
And then the thing is, with a record label, I personally have never seen a situation where a record label is good for the artist. That not in a complete way, you know what I'm saying? Like I've seen a lot of people, and I know Rhymesayers really try, but I've like never seen a situation. What I see over and over again is artists struggling for their whole life and people that run. So like even a successful artist has to perform their whole life. James Brown died on Christmas out doing shows. So did Prince, so did Michael Jackson, so did all of these big artists died out on the road because they had to keep going and like, and music execs it's just a thing that I've never seen that done in a way that makes me think like I want to be that. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting. Yeah.
So if there are artists that I know and that are interested and want to know something from me, I'm trying to tell them like, yo, I'm trying to own my own stuff now. And I really think artists should own their stuff. If somebody helps me, then like I'm down to cut them in. But I just think this is a time when everybody should just own their own stuff. So I'm not interested in putting out anyone else's music, but because it's such a time when you can just do it yourself. I don't think the idea of someone who did not make music owning part of that music feels wrong to me. And it's not to discount their role. I know, but in a short answer is I'm not trying to be a record label like that. It's just a vehicle by which I can do the things I'm doing. But when people come around, it's like, yeah, sharing the process of how to write songs, even if you don't want to do it as a career, it's a beautiful spiritual and psychological practice. And then teaching people how to build their own businesses. I grew up around Black barbers who like you start out renting a chair in somebody else's barber shop and then you give them a cut and you eventually hope to get to the point where you can own your own barber shop. You know what I'm saying? And you open your own shop and then now you got other barbers working for you. And I really feel like music is one of those things that young people, and especially young Black people, is like young Black people are at the front of every cultural movement that's taken over the world, for the last 300 years.
Yeah, that's I think that's just another example, Ali, of you taking what you do and the value that you have as a human being and doing it your way, right? In a way that you feel is the right way to do it. Because it obviously, when you have the level of success that you've had, it opens you up to be able to commercialize that. You can commercialize that. You could create your own version of Rhymesayers and you could make a ton of money, right? And yeah, that's a good question. It can be good for different people. It can be good. Like there are certain people, obviously Rhymesayers has had a ton of amazing artists come in, get their feet under them, and then they leave and do their own thing once they're strong enough. Once they kind of have that foundation, that platform, they kind of, they'll exit and do their own thing. But how cool would it be?
And a lot of artists that it never took off. Most artists it doesn't.
True.
And that's the other side of record labels, that like they invest in a lot of artists. They pour money into a lot of people they believe in, and it doesn't work out.
Right.
That's the other side of why I'm just like, man,
you never know.
Right.
Yeah.
So I gotta wrap this up soon, but I gotta share something with you and ask you for a favor. So I, in addition to practicing law, I started a coffee company called Black Turtle Coffee and a burger joint called Kook Burger. Both just thinking about, like, I love practicing law. It's fun. It's exciting. Really sophisticated clients, right? Like, it's cool. It is fun to do. But there's something really special about, like, being a person who loves coffee and, like, having been frustrated by the local coffee shops around me and being like, I could do this better, right? Like, I'm going to start importing beans from Brazil and, like, roasting single origin, all organic, fair trade coffee. And, like, just, like, starting that out, like, seeing a problem, seeing something that you love, that you have a passion for, and just saying, like, I'm going to do the best possible job that I can. And I'm going to create it because I love the product as a consumer, and I want to share it with other people, right? It's very similar to music. And I did the same thing with burgers. It was like, I love burgers, and I've, like, taken a little piece. Like, I love In-N-Out. I love Shake Shack. I like Five Guys. I like, right? And there's, like, certain BurgerFi. Like, there's certain things that I like that they've done, but it's like, there's certain things I would do differently. Like, I went to Mr. Beast's Burger the other day just because, like, I love burgers. I want to try different things. And, like, it's amazing through the art of building something yourself, how you can create something that to you and hopefully other people, right, is the best, that it has all the qualities. Say that again.
What city are you in now?
So right now we're in Brigantine. So Brigantine, New Jersey, which is just outside of Atlantic City. That's where we started. It's a smaller market, but it's right next to AC. It gets crazy mobbed in the summer, and it's all New York, Philly traffic. And so you get a really good sense of like whether your concept is going to work or not. And I mentioned this to you because we just expanded to Philly. We're opening up a version of Kook Burger, which has a bar. So it's going to be called Kook Burger and Bar. So it's like smash patties, certified Angus beef, specialty fries. We got Canadian poutine, right? Plug in the hometown favorite. Just the delicious chef curated menu that me and, one of my childhood best friends from Canada, we put together. Also a massive Brother Ali, an Atmosphere fan. His name's Price. But we just recently got a building in Philly, and the top 2 floors used to be a nightclub, okay? And so we're putting the Kook Burger and Bar downstairs. The top 2 floors, it's incredible. There's a stage, there's a balcony on the 3rd floor that overlooks the stage, but it's not a crazy big venue, right? Maybe 300 people max capacity. But I pitched the landlord. I was like, listen, because he's like in his 70s, old Greek dude, great guy, but he was like, he ran the club like 5-10 years ago, and he's like, I'm not doing clubs anymore. I'm old. I'm tired. I'm done. And it wasn't even for rent. And I was like, yo, his name's Pete. I was like, Pete, and because when I saw the space, it made me have flashbacks to Atmosphere concerts I went to in Calgary, to when I went and I saw you in Brooklyn a couple of years ago. And like, that's again passion. I love that as a consumer, and it was like it hit me, and I just went into a pitch, like didn't know I was gonna pitch him, just started pitching him on this comedy and live music venue, and I was like, let me do it, like this is gonna be sick, right? Like here's how it'll work. We'll do this, we'll do that. And it is at the very, very top of my list. I know that you could make more money playing in other places, and certainly bigger places, but it is like my ultimate dream
to have. Did you send an email through our website? Yeah. I forwarded that to the people that book us, but they're just out on Christmas break right now.
Okay, no worries. I wanted to give you a little preview so that you kind of understood, like, it's not Radio City, but like it's gonna be cool and cozy, and like we'll pack it full of people who love you, and I just think it'd be awesome, and we can grab a beer after down at the Kook Burger Bar.
What's crazy is so as of right now, I'm only scheduled to be in North America once in 2023. I'll probably accept more things. But as of right now, I'm doing a festival. I said yes to a festival in Victoria.
BC.
In June, yeah. Because
nice.
it's one of the most beautiful places ever. Like I love going to Victoria.
Very
they
beautiful.
Made a nice also they're doing like something with podcasts as well. So it's music and podcasts. So what I told the people is like, if you guys are ready by June, if you want to book it for June, then we could possibly do both. You know what I mean? I basically, for me to leave my home and go to North America, there's a certain number that I need to make. And I think the offer that you guys made, it's a generous offer, but it's not that. So what I was like, man, let's find something else that I'm doing and attach it. So I think if we could do it in around that June time is probably likely. Can I just make a suggestion?
Yes.
Okay. So I love burgers too. My family and I are Orthodox Muslims. We only eat halal meat, which is basically like the Muslim version of kosher. What's happening in a lot of like Europe and Australia is that the Muslims show up there, and the Muslims, whether they're like converts or whether they're immigrants, they prefer to eat halal meat. and halal meat, it just means it's slaughtered a certain way, cared for a certain way. It's really high quality. You can get, whatever quality you can get anything else. There's actually a beef line called Creekstone. That's the highest level of beef that they sell in North America. And they slaughter it halal. Basically, what it means is anybody will eat it, but it means that the Muslims also can eat it. And the thing is that a lot of those high-end burger joints are not halal. So me and my family had never tasted Five Guys. We had never tasted Shake Shack. We never tasted a lot of the stuff that you mentioned until we moved to Istanbul, because they have halal versions of those in Istanbul, and in Philly, there's a huge Muslim population in Philly. And so if you were to offer the burger, if the meat was halal, and if you had a way of separating, like, I don't know if you guys are going to have bacon, if you had a way of like separating that to just ensure that, like, if you want a halal burger, you can get it.
And it won't be contaminated.
The fact there's a bar there means that Muslims probably won't hang out. But in terms of like the to-go situation, or maybe even coming during the day, if it gets out in the Muslim community that these are high-end burgers and they're halal and it's black owned,
let's go.
You might do
this idea. I love this idea. We're gonna do it. That's what's also awesome about like owning the company, is like, that's an incredible idea. We're gonna do it. Like, that's an amazing idea. There's been a couple people who have mentioned something like that. It becomes tricky at some levels because there's so many different people who want different things, but like, that's something that it's not that hard to do in terms of food costs and different things, like to have that variety. We have a veggie patty. We didn't do the impossible, but because we've found that a lot of vegetarians now, like especially if you've been vegetarian for a while, they don't necessarily want something that tastes like meat anymore. They want like a veggie thing. And so like, we have a really, really delicious veggie patty that's literally a blend of vegetables that we smash on the grill just like we do anything else. But we're definitely going to add a halal patty to the mix. That's a great idea.
Or even, I'm saying, so one of the things that they do in Europe is like, they just switch they just only get the halal one. You know what I mean? So like, just the meat that we serve here is halal. For people who don't care, they won't know the difference. But the people who do care, they'll go to your spot. I know that when I lived in Minneapolis, if we had a place like that, like it's really hard to find a good halal hamburger.
Right.
So I love that. In New York, for example, in the Village in New York, one of our like famous imams started a butcher shop, and they have a place called Honest Chops, it's in the Village right near the Comedy Cellar. And you can go there and actually get like a really high quality that can like rival any of the quality burger places.
That's a good idea. If they have a CAB, yeah, because it's just the way it's slaughtered. If they have a CAB halal, like it's one of those things. Certain people, they think things are for them or they're not for them, and I think there's a lot of like silly Americans who would be like, "Oh, it's halal. Like, I don't have halal. I don't eat halal." Right? And they'll think that it's not for them.
Or they'll think it's like the weird spices.
Right. It must have like, they don't know what it means.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to make a big deal out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I get what you're saying.
It could be like small in the bottom of the corner, but then I'm saying then get Freeway. Like, then get the rapper Freeway to go there. And like, just, pay him to do an endorsement. It wouldn't be a crazy amount, but pay him to be like, yo, these burgers are crazy and they're halal.
Hey, or get Brother Ali. Get Brother Ali to come out. Freeway's the man too. We're running out of time. We have to do, I think, a round 2. You mentioned the podcast. I would love to get you here in person. This studio that I'm in right now is on Market Street, only a couple blocks from the building that we're putting in the comedy and live music venue and the Kook Burger and Bar. I would love to get with you on a promotion thing. We can kill a lot of birds with one stone, right? We could do a round 2 of the podcast, because I want to talk to you more about music. We talked so much about some very, very important issues with race and equality in this country. But I would love to do a round 2 and get you in to perform. Maybe we can throw together a list of folks to come open for you and make it an event and start marketing it.
You think you'd be ready by June? Like, if I could pair it with that thing I'm doing in Victoria in June, I think we could probably make it happen.
June's easy. Yeah. We're going to start having our first performances in March. And so June's going to be really nice because we'll have had 2-3 dozen at least performances to warm up. But yeah, June would be great. And the other thing that I was thinking of as well is if it's going to be a massively promoted thing, like, it's because the venue size isn't huge, it gives something really unique. Like, I have never been that close to you, as close as you will be able to be at this venue. Like, there's VIP seats where you're like, man, this is incredible. Like, I'm in the show, right? That kind of feeling. And it presents something unique. So the other thing that we could do in terms of bang for your buck is we can have three shows, right? We could put a show for 3 days in a row, or give you a break in between and do 2 shows, a break, and another show, right? And that way we can book out all 3 shows, right? That kind of thing is what the smaller venues I've seen are doing more. They'll have a big shot come in. They know that they can't, like, there's way more tickets that they could sell for this person than they're going to be able to fit in the room, but they'll just put 3 dates that are close together so that you're there, you're hanging out.
Yeah.
We did that actually in Minneapolis, where instead of playing First Avenue, which we normally do, I did 2 nights at a smaller spot, and we could have added a third and a fourth. Like, they both sold out super quick.
And I think we'd get closer to the minimums and things that way as well. But I appreciate the open and candid, discussion about it. But it's you're seriously you're a legend. It's a dream come true to have you on the podcast and to be able to talk about these different business opportunities with you. Thank you so much for being on the Braeden Anderson Show. Any parting words or messages you want to leave with our listeners?
No, just really for you. So to you, I would say thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. It was really fun talking to you, and thank you for being so kind to me and so generous to me. For your, I would say for you and for your Black listeners, if I overstepped or overspoke or anything like that, please forgive me for that, and please feel free to correct me and let me know. For anybody white that's listening that may have felt hurt or offended by something that I said, remember that I'm whiter than you, and and that what's really, like, what's being shared here is very genuine and really true, and this particular evil lasts as long as it's okay with white people for it to be what it is. And so the real onus is really, like, everything has been done. Everyone, and even the purpose of your book and of your show is evidence of the fact that everyone else has done everything else that can be done about this thing, except for white people creating actual anti-racist culture amongst themselves. That's the thing that hasn't been done yet. And so that's the thing that my words are in support of something like that. So I'm grateful, man. I appreciate you.